Hey, I have a question for you. Do you like hijinks? Do you like zany, silly foolishness and lots of jokes and comedy? Or do you prefer things on a more serious note? Or do you want things to be mysterious and dark? That's my question for today. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. Let me just say, hey, thanks for being here. I'm Gregory. This is 1 in 20 D&D. You probably already know that, but if you haven't been here before, I like to talk about D&D and all kinds of different RPGs and the ones I play and the ones I'm aware of, and share my thoughts and some insights into gaming. I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons and other role-playing games for a long time, like over 30 years. Shh, I know I don't look that old, but I am that old. So it's all right, and I'm okay with it. But in the meantime, hey, here's D&D Daily number 24. I'm going to talk about game styles in a slightly different way than I did last time. I'm probably going to come back to this in the future as well, because I think there's a lot that can be said about game styles and the different ways people play their game, and the importance of having that conversation, having that awareness, and developing and communicating that up front. So I've been watching Dice Camera Action to try to catch up with where they are at in their show. I'm like way back on like session 114 or something like that. And it's like they recorded it back in like the week before Halloween last year. So I'm a little behind, a couple months behind, and I'm just catching up. I'm going to use that as an example. I'm going to use a game that you may know of called The Adventure Zone, which is a bunch of fantastic brothers and their father having another wild and crazy romp and their Dungeons and Dragons game. And of course, I'm going to use Critical Role in this example, because Critical Role is right now probably the most popular out there, and for sure it is a hugely well respected and watched and viewed show and D&D game that people are aware of. So I'm going to use these three, and I'll talk about sort of my own, and then of course like just make it as broad as I can. So let's take DCA for a moment. Dice Camera Action. Chris Perkins is a fantastic DM. He has taken this crew through the whole gamut. He has brought them to tears, and he has scared the lights out of them, and he has made them laugh hysterically. That they are a zany bunch, that they have ridiculous adventures. It is all theater of the mind. Of course they roll dice and they use their stat sheets and all that, but it's all theater of the mind. It's all done through the way they dialogue and the way they play together. They have an incredible game, and it is entirely like zany antics. I almost feel like I'm watching an old Scooby-Doo cartoon when I listen to and watch Dice Camera Action. So that's one style. Let's call it zany with the excuse me, with slightly horror themed, slightly, they get into some dark places, but they always get out of it, and they have lots of fun doing it. Then you have the guys at the Adventure Zone. Now, the Adventure Zone podcast is just a podcast, so it's only listened to. You don't see them actually interacting with each other. So it's a slightly different feel that you get from when you listen to it, as opposed to watching people play, like Dice Camera Action, or most people watch Critical Role. With these guys, and I'm only I'm only 8 episodes in, but I think it's worth talking about because they're family, they're really, really relaxed with each other. And they trust each other on a very profound level. So what happens is they have this slapstick, silly, easygoing game. It's very laid back, but it's super entertaining. That's what they like. That's what they're into. They're trying to they're almost trying to one up each other. It's like they're trying to get one over on the other, poke fun at the other, and that sort of thing. And they're brothers. So they rib each other and they have a good old time. And of course, their dad in there is Merle, the character Merle. He's almost like the serious one in the group most of the time so far. So I'm curious to see where that goes. But that's a very laid back game style. Now, Critical Role, I almost want to call it a drama. It's like a very dramatic role-playing game. They do battle mats. They bring out miniatures. They actually play on a table. They're sitting around a table, even though it's filmed and it's produced on a certain level. They are playing a live improv game. It's all, just like you would play at any other table with cameras, right? So now they have a game that Matt takes them through highs and lows. They've definitely had tears and laughter and the whole range of emotion. And a big part of that is because they're all fantastic actors. So they are able to go there with each other. They trust each other as friends, which helps. And that's just the style that they all enjoy and want to play. I think the first campaign, Vox Machina, was a very emotional roller coaster, and they had these very big, lofty goals. They were trying to save the nation, so to speak. Now in their second campaign with the Mighty Nine, it's a lot more mercenary. It's a lot more of the group sort of looking out for themselves. They may have big effects on the greater world, but that's not their focus. That's not their intention. Their intention is to look out for themselves and then maybe look out for these other fools that they're rolling around with. And what Matt has done from one campaign to the next is he set a different tone. And he said it in some of the Talks Machinas that they do and so forth, some of the interviews. He took a different approach to this second campaign. Same group of people, but they're having a slightly different game style because the theme is slightly different. Now, in the games I play, if you listen to them, you'll see we like to laugh, but we can also be a pretty serious bunch. We tend to be a lot more focused in on the task at hand, dealing with the NPCs, dealing with the foes, it seems to be a little more serious. Although, lately, which I'm really thrilled about, it's gotten a lot more lighthearted, and we tend to have a lot more just goofball kind of stuff going on at the same time. So what am I trying to say? Let me sum it up. In game style, not only is there a balance that should be discussed with the group ahead of time between high adventure, between lots of combat, between lots of role playing, and so forth. So you need to have an understanding of how that's going to come out. Is it going to be strictly theater of the mind? Is there going to be a little bit of theater of the mind and some battle mat, actual tabletop gameplay or tokens on Roll20 or whatever? Or are you going to be very heavily into the miniatures and the maneuvering and so forth? It's really important to talk about that, but it's also important to talk about what kind of adventure you want to have. Now, in my Tuesday group, we didn't talk too much about this yet, but organically in the first couple sessions, we have already developed this sort of level of play where it's kind of serious, but they're still joking and jibing and goofing off a little bit. So there's a light-hearted undercurrent, which is kind of cool. This is how every different game is going to be. From high adventure to high stakes. From very dark and mysterious to very light and funny and silly. These are different game styles that you can develop and play through in your groups. And you don't have to discuss it, but it's good to be aware of it. Because if you don't like dark, mystery, maybe even bordering on kind of horror genres, then don't play in that kind of a game and just communicate with the DM like that's not what you're interested in, and maybe the rest of the group isn't either. And I'll talk about that communication more in others, but the point I'm trying to make here is be aware of the game style. What you like, what game you're in, and whether or not it's a fit for you. These are all things that are important and something that is maybe not often discussed. You know, lighthearted versus serious. What kind of game do you like? I like them all, but I tend to be more serious. However, you gotta have humor in there at the same time. If it's not fun and funny, why are you playing? Hey, these are just my thoughts for the day. I just wanted to talk a little bit differently about game style, another way to think about game style. Let me see what you guys have in mind. Tell me your game style. What do you like? What do you prefer? And in the meantime, I'll see you at the table someday and keep rolling 20s.